That's right, Alistair the Invoker makes a top 8 finish, and in 3rd place nonetheless. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more honest content. Now, this is actually interesting. Manadium is the most represented deck out of this regional top cut, and that's not something that you see a lot in the current format for whatever reason. Manadium's had a little bit of problems trying to get the meta going, and I mean, that's fine. It didn't even make, top 4 out of this event. Both of them were in the, 5 through 8 slots. So I think that's kind of something interesting to kind of unfold when you're looking at the meta. Now, winning the event was actually Chimera, and it's going to be Chimera branded for those of you that are like, oh boy, another Chimera deck. And it actually played the Magician of the Nightmare, the card that I always give a lot of garbage to for, being the way it is. We also had a Kashtira Duelist in Top Cut. I'm not that surprised that we still have Kashtira sitting at the dinner table. I mean, it is the monster of the format, right? It's the thing that you have to beat. We also have Purely, so Cat in the Hat's still doing Purely things. I'm not surprised about that either. Now, some interesting things. We also have we have Vanquish Soul here to start things off, actually getting 2nd place out of this regional, and that honestly really did shock me. I haven't seen a lot of this deck, walking around as late. I don't know what's going on with it. It doesn't seem like it's had too good of a matchup, but it was very interesting to see that it was very successful here. Now, we have the Infernoble deck that I was talking about earlier. Infernoble actually had a pretty decent success rate out here as well. I'm not all that surprised either. Infernoble, especially if you got as much Manadium as you had here, it really performed pretty well. And of course, we have Invoked for you as well. Now, this is not like your standard, we're going to play, other fusion packages. No, this is old, reliable Dogmatica good stuff. And it looks like it actually worked out. All right, we're going to pass on over those deck lists. So winning our event here was the beautiful, beautiful list of Chimera with Fallen of As you do see that we are playing some Alubers in here as well. That way we can go ahead and get the maximum value for, searching for the Branded Fusion. It also technically is another choke point to make the opponent waste some sort of negate, because they always have the Branded Fusion in hand. That's what it feels like these days. Hand traps are fine. The thing that caught me off guard was the fact that we're actually playing the Magician in here. The Magician doesn't tend to see hardly any play. And the fact that we have a callback here and inclusion in that is actually pretty nice. We also have King Tiger Wang, who down on the side, I feel like that's become a pretty mainstay side deck card for this deck. I mean, immediate access to it in the matchups that you need it to blow up things. It's an actual monster. Outside of that, build feels very, very nice. It's nice to see that we have a different take on the deck, and the inclusion of some of these tech choices that felt a little bit weird. Next up is our Vanquish Soul list, coming in 2nd place, and of course we are playing some There Can Only Be Ones in this bad boy. That way you can actually ensure that you can control your opponent. You don't want your opponent to be able to kind of floodgate themselves. Yeah, you do. You want to make sure that you can control the game as much as you can. We still are doing the Arise Heart in here as well. The biggest things are, it's another search off of the Fenrir. It's another special summon. Remember, you do lock yourself into Exceed if you do bring it on down, but that's fine. You have plenty of things down here in the extra deck that look like you're going to be stepping stones into the materials. I also see that we are playing a Draco Sack in here as well, so we can go ahead and spread some tokens, set up some additional value. And I see we're also playing the Lingaribo as well. Finally, somebody doesn't want to actually lose to Nightmare Corruptor Ibley. I feel that we've gotten back to that stage of, the meta not really wanting to handle Nightmare Corruptor Ibley, even though it feels like it's rode off into the sunset so long ago. 3rd place here is our Invoked deck, and wow, this is a time machine. I suppose that things have slowed down enough. There's not a lot of things that are going to get dropped from the extra deck right now that are going to seem incredibly scary, so you kind of get your Maximus value as you see. Yeah, Garua does exist. Yeah, Ints sometimes there's the Fossil Skull. What? It's all the little things that the Kashtira deck want to bring to the table that would be slightly threatening for this deck, but it managed to lock down a 3rd place out of a regional, and I don't care where in the world the regional actually is, it still happened. All right, Invoked still sat down at the dinner table, shook up the meta. That's what you want to say. I also see that we are playing summon limit, and there can only be one down there. So you get some extra floodgate value to punish the opponent as well. You know, the amount of people that can't actually play around floodgates right now is actually astronomical. Good stuff. Next up here, we have our Infernoble Duelist. Now, we are playing 6 books, which, once again, I mean, you need as many going second cards as you can get playing Infernoble. The deck is incredibly fragile at the end of the day, and I really want this deck to be a lot better than it actually is. But it struggles so hard. I see that we are playing the Artorigeus in here as a 1-up, which is fine. We're playing Triple Charles, which I think a few people might be detoured by that. I think that's fine. It's interesting to see that they were getting away with it. And the Metal Silver Armor in here is actually fantastic. Metal Silver Armor actually kind of turning into one of the best equip cards in modern era Yu-Gi-Oh! As late. Outside of that, I don't see anything too crazy about this list. I think yeah, everything looks pretty straightforward. Obviously, you're maximizing on as much of the power as you can in the searchability. 2 Durandals might feel a little bit weird, but I think that's fine too. Alright, we have some Manadium Scareclaw. At this point in time, like, what are we classifying this as? I see some Manadium cards. I also see, you know, Scareclaw cards. It's because how well these engines actually interact with each other. You know, the fact that you're able to step into the Vicious Estrab. You know, I see that we are playing the Crimson Dragon, but we are not playing the Ultimaya or, you know, any of the King Calamity stuff to shut out the opponent. While that play is good, not every single variant has to go for it at the end of the day. You know, you can go ahead and toggle a Dissipator into, you can toggle a Baron into, Dissipator, and set up some other forms of interruption. You have a lot of stuff going for you here with this deck that really shouldn't be legal, but it sets up these huge, enormous boards. And of course, I mean, you have 6 books, so if your opponent sets up a big field, you can go ahead and, you know, Book of Eclipse, clean things up. It's the real experience, this format. Next up here is Purely, and we are playing the Saurus. We've seen the Saurus come up a couple of times out of the regional circuit as of late because it gives you some targeting protection. It's another one of those hand traps. You can kind of counterpick against the opponent and do your thing. I mean, you'll never be able to summon the thing because it's a ritual monster, but you don't care about that. That protection to ensure that your monster can, you know, stick around, stay face up on the field, doesn't get interrupted, is worth the sacrifice of the slots to play right now. And I think, once again, this is like the 3rd or 4th time that we've seen Saurus showing up. We're also only playing 2 Book of Moon in the main deck. That feels a little bit strange to me. Purely's been wanting to maximize on that for a little while, but it looks like, as said and done at the end of the day, that they felt that they didn't need to maximize it too much. And we're also citing the shifters down there as well. Yeah, Purely can play shifter. We've really come a long way in terms of the meta. Alright, next up here, we have our other Manadium list. Now, this looks very familiar here. See that we are playing 6 books yet again. Those defensive options are really, really solid, man. Like, trust me when I say this. You want to make sure that you can play through anything. The Talents is also an incredibly useful card. You want to make sure that, you know, your opponent can't actually play through really anything here. And outside of that, I mean, I think the ratios are fine for the Manadium part of the deck. You're not trying to go too crazy on it. You have 2 Rictophobia, triple copies of Calarium, and of course the Scareclaw package is fine. 2 copies of Vicious Estrad is also going to be good. The fact that the summoning conditions on that are you know, really easy to make, and they're banishable from the graveyard, just makes the card an absolute monster. Outside of that, standard extra deck stuff. By the way, this is the same list as the previous list that we'd seen here. So you have 2 duelists here, actually stepping through the top cut and being successful with this. And of course, our 8th place was Cashed Hero. Wow. All the way back here at the back. And we are playing 2 books with 2 lances. That's our defensive options. We actually opted to have imperms in the main deck as well to kind of counter pick some more of the additional meta. And of course, we have additional support sided with the extra book, the extra lance, and of course some Book of Eclipses down there as well. So if anything, you know, comes up that looks like it's going to be an issue, we have the immediate outs to be able to handle. So I like when you can see a meta covering its bases here relatively quickly. So, good stuff. So, what do you guys think about this regional? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace out. Patrons! Thank you!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.